Cody, welcome to the pod, brother.
Bro, it's so good to be here. It's good to get to know you. We've spent a little time offline getting to know each other. Yeah, man, honored to be here.
Yeah, our friend Keith Yackey connected us. We have really similar stories, so I'm kind of excited for just to hear a little bit more about you and what you're up to. We're both battling a little laryngitis, a little bit of voice loss here, but we're making it happen. So tell me a little bit about your ministry background. I read online and I heard you confirm it before we hit record. You were in ministry for 15 years, but so go for it. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I got in ministry full time when I was 19. There was a pastor that saw something in me. I was doing a few different things. I was in university. I was managing a garage, wrenching on cars. I've been a certified mechanic for, 23, 24 years.
Cool.
I was also apprenticing to be a barber. So long story short, I got a lot of pieces of paper. But this pastor saw something in me that was confirmed. I grew up in the church. My grandparents, who were, the bigger hand of raising me, always spoke life and vision over me and saw it in me way before I did. And I think there were some things that I had to work through in order to be able to see it. But he called it out in me and gave me a platform that genuinely I had no business having. I didn't deserve it. I didn't earn it. It was a grace that I think was the first real grace that I had been offered in my life in terms of an opportunity. And, it came with its own set of complications, and it was an occupational ministry for 13 years in the local church and abroad, traveling, speaking, playing music, and a beautiful, beautiful season. And also created a little bit of friction because I really didn't know. I got in ministry so young that I didn't really have an identity outside of it. And as somebody who already struggled with self-worth and self-perception and confidence, everything kind of got tied to performance and tied to my identity as a pastor. So that was kind of the unhealthy side of it. But, I still say that I'm probably more in ministry now than I was as a local pastor. I believe that the pulpit was always preparation for the platform that God has allowed me to serve in today. Because the audience continues to grow and we're able to reach more people and help more people than I believe I probably ever could have in the brick and mortar, local church.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. It's funny. So we have tons of similarities because I was in local church ministry, pastoring for the most part for 10 years. Grew up in the church. Dad was a pastor. I was a fourth generation pastor. Wow. Traveled around the world, leading worship, sharing my songs, did music and all that, but also really loved preaching the word. Yeah. And it's interesting what you said there because I remember I had a worship pastor. He was a mentor of mine, still is a mentor of mine to this day. And he said, he had a transitionary season where he kind of stepped out of being a worship pastor after doing it for probably 10, 12 years and was sort of figuring out his next step. And he said, I have preached messages about you're not what you do. The Father loves you unconditionally. He's like, I've done the inner healing work. I've done the therapy. He's like, I've built this identity that I know is apart from ministry. And he's like, but dude, I haven't been in ministry for 6 months and I've never felt more lost in my life. Yeah. Those things are they're so difficult to separate. How did you, because then you made a transition from ministry to marketplace. And I guess I'm curious for you, how did you know that you were called to the marketplace, and how did you know that was the right thing to do? And I think I'm especially asking because we have a faith-based audience, and we know that in the church, whether it's spoken or not, there's always this assumption that if you're on the platform at a church, that is the ultimate spiritual thing you can do. That's the most spiritual person in the world, is the person who has the pulpit. And like you said, and I feel the exact same way. I started Deep Clean 7 years ago. I have discipled more people. I've impacted more people with the gospel through the work I do now than I did even when I was a local church pastor. So God can do so many different things in different formats. But even beyond that, the minute you give your life to Jesus, it's all full-time ministry. Whether you're a mechanic in a shop, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, or you are, on stages or whatever it might be. How did you figure out that calling to get out of the local church and do something more marketplace?
Do you want a sexy answer, or do you want the real answer?
Give me the sexy answer first, and then give it to me real.
All right. The sexy answer is that I had sensed a vision to help more people in a way that I couldn't from behind a pulpit. There were things that I wanted to say and ways in which I wanted to interact with people that, because of the politics of the church and because of the way that the church is typically framed, there would be no way for me to be able to breach the topics and the depth of what I wanted to communicate, because when you're limited to a Sunday morning and you're limited to kind of the experience of the local church, it just created a parameter that I didn't feel that I was free to operate in.
What kind of topics did you want to talk about?
So now let's go to the unsexy side.
All right, perfect.
So here's the real conversation. The real conversation is that over the 13 years of ministry, I became an affirmation addict. I didn't know who I was outside of ministry. I grew up where my entire identity was framed around the success I had in school, the success I had in sports, the success I had in music. That the only time that I heard like, great job, I love you, proud of you, was when I was putting out fires for adults that no child should need to put out. And when I was managing the emotions of adults that should have been able to manage their own. And so that became a really great defense mechanism. But you can imagine if I was already struggling with that as a child and struggling with self-worth and only being, lovable if I'm useful, getting into ministry was gasoline on a fire. And while you can have the best of intentions and you can do all of these things with as pure a heart as you're able, sometimes natural talent and charisma opens doors that your character isn't equipped to walk through.
Yeah.
And I was good at keeping that up until I wasn't. And in 2015, I went through a divorce because I married the church and not my wife at the time, my son's mother. I was so addicted to being all things to all people that I sacrificed my family on the altar of that self-perceived success. And in the midst of that transition of walking through a divorce, I lost a multitude of family members and friends. I had an 18-month-old niece that was murdered. I had a 19-year-old sister that was murdered. I had a best friend who took his own life. I had a mentor who died in a motorcycle accident. I lost an aunt to cancer. I lost 3 friends in ministry to self-inflicted gunshot wounds, leaving behind wives and children due to the same overwhelm that I was experiencing.
Wow.
All while getting up every Sunday. God's got a plan. No, I'm fine. Can't even process the trauma because it's just too much, too fast. I'm losing my identity as a full-time dad. I'm losing my identity as a husband. I'm losing people around me. I'm starting to wonder if it's my fault, if this is God's wrath on my divorce because of the fundamental nature of how I was raised. All of this reached a capsized moment when my body actually shut down and I went septic. I almost died. Cortisol levels went through the roof. You can say I'm built this way or I'm built different or, like God's got a plan. I'm just going to keep going. That's all well and good until you recognize your body keeps a score and your body isn't any different than anybody else's. And I couldn't process the trauma fast enough. I couldn't maintain the pace of sleeping 2 hours a night because the night terrors of the things that I had seen, because I had witnessed all of these people pass and I had held their hands as they passed. I'd pulled the plugs. I'd been the one to do all the funerals. I'm 42. I've led 145 funerals.
Wow.
And so I'm very, very accustomed with loss and grief. And I just didn't have the tools to process effectively. And so I went septic, and I recognized in that moment that it wasn't that I didn't love ministry. It was that I needed to be able to process why I was the way that I was and why I couldn't say no and who I was outside of what I did. And so I stepped out of ministry. Originally, the tagline was to help pastors take guns out of their mouths. Recognized real quick that was a really terrible marketing slogan.
Yeah.
So it was more to help good men become great. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't have a roadmap for it. I had no idea about like life coaching or anything of that nature. I just recognized what wasn't working. So I put myself in therapy and I started building frameworks around the man that I wanted to be. I took a long, hard survey of my life and I recognized there were patterns and things that I had learned, things that I had absorbed, things that I had taken from childhood, things that were placed on me that I didn't ask for that were just not useful. And so a line emerged that is, okay, well, if this is who I am, then this is what I do. And I just started building frameworks around, if I want to be this type of dad, if I want to be this type of husband in the future, if I want to be this athlete, whatever, then these are the things that I do on a daily basis. And so I started to confirm my identity through action and through keeping my word to myself, not really tying it to what anybody said about me, just put my head down and started going. I didn't have like a real sexy comeback story of 7 figures in 7 days, building this massive coaching brand out of nothing. Like I flipped Harleys out of my garage. I did guitar lessons, vocal lessons, piano lessons out of my front room, cut hair out of my room, building websites and doing graphic design for churches who couldn't afford, media pastors. I'm playing bars on the weekends that I didn't have my son. I was doing anything I could to make ends meet. And I will say I did create some momentum pretty quickly. But it wasn't, the goal was really to save my own life before I dared tried to give, as Bonhoeffer would say, offer cheap grace to anyone else. That cheap grace had just run out in my life.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's incredible. Did you know that you were putting your marriage on the altar of ministry at the time?
No.
Or is that no? So for you, you felt like I'm doing God's work, and
listen,
the marriage is just on autopilot.
I was at everything, anything that she needed me to be there for. I was there.
Okay.
I was in the thick. On paper, you couldn't have been a better husband. On paper.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But behind closed doors, the anxiety of performance was getting to the point where like there would be nights that I would drink too much. I would show up sloppy. We were roommates. There was no romance. Like I was a machine. And I was so wrapped up in being all things to all people that while it looked really good on paper, it was hollow. And I didn't recognize it at the time. I never grew up with a really great model of what stewardship in marriage looked like outside of my grandparents, which was a very far removed example because it was just completely generationally different. Yeah. And you don't really have much accountability because when you can put on a mask and pretend like everything's fine, which is what we see on social media all the time, everybody's got a perfect marriage until they don't.
Yep.
And I didn't have the insulation around me to help protect my marriage. I didn't know how to recognize things that I was unaware of. You can only lead someone to their own level of self-awareness. And I was just not, I thought I was doing all the right things. I thought I was doing kind of like David. I'm doing the best with what I got in my hands.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it wasn't as healthy as I thought it was.
What happened to your faith during this season, especially your relationship with God? Like, I think a lot of people hear this story and then that person's gone. Like they don't come back. How did you stay connected?
Again, I'll give you the real story, not the
bro, give it to me
made for TV version. Truth is, I didn't do it well. Truth is, I hurt a lot of people. Truth is, I was a youth pastor for 10 years and came out of the gate on the backside of ministry, jumping into personal development for the first time. So you've got all these new age ideologies that I spent my whole life defending against with apologetics, but having a real deconstruction of like, I don't know whether I believe this because my grandparents drug me to church every Sunday morning. I don't know if I believe this because academically I went to school for it. I don't know if I believe this because I've been paid to say that I believe it for 13 years.
Right.
But none of this is adding up to me. And so I took a really hard left. And online, I blew a lot of things up. And I started bleeding on people who never, ever cut me. And I started publicly deconstructing my faith in front of everyone, which was not responsible. It was painful. It was pain-filled. And I confused a lot of people. I confused students who had been with me for, since they were children and are now adults. I confused their parents. I confused my parishioners or congregants or church members, however you want to say it. Yeah. I confused a lot of people because I was confused. Now, that prodigal season didn't last an incredibly long time, but it lasted long enough to blow some things up. and to unfortunately fracture some relationships that still haven't been put back together in a healthy way. Because I think sometimes walking in love is walking in distance. But I think we all go through a season where we have to figure out what faith means for us, because songs don't sing the same on Sunday mornings when you've been through an immense amount of life. Yeah. And, you know, the cutesy Sunday morning, sit down, be quiet, be good, you know, just, you know, appease your wife, sit next to her, sing these cute little songs that are too high for you and all this stuff. It's like, no, we understand faith is messy. Faith is hard. And as a man, we're called to, you know, protect, provide, pioneer, and pastor in our homes. And for a lot of us, we don't have the frameworks to understand even how to do that.
Yeah.
And so again, part of this was just setting out to figure out what actually do I believe. And my prodigal season was short, but it gave me an experience, an opportunity to make my faith my own, and to take everything that I had learned, and to now, you know, even, you know, over social media and things of that nature, to be able to put legs to a faith that I think has substance and depth and is weighty, and it's not cute words and it's not cliches. And it's built on the backside of walking through hell and still smelling a little like smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it gives you a place that you can lead other people now too, right?
Yeah, I've been to hell. I'm not afraid of yours. Yeah. I'm not afraid of yours.
Yeah, which is really amazing. So what you do now is, it sounds like you do very high level leadership, coaching. Mm-hmm. You're working with pastors, leaders, founders, all kinds of people. So I want to ask you, what's the thing what's the hardest part about your job? You know, a pastor comes to you, maybe he resonates with the story, you know, he's living the double life, or he's not sure he believes what he believes, or he's blown things up and he's trying to get things back on track, or the founder who's made his millions but doesn't have things together at home. Like it sounds like those are a lot of the stories you're working with. What's the hardest part about your job when you're starting to work with these guys?
I wouldn't say that, like, we got to be careful when we say the word hard. Like, so my family's been in feed and agriculture my whole life.
Okay.
My dad is 70 years old and lugs 50-pound bags of feed every single day in, day out, 10 hours a day. That's hard. What I do is hard in a different capacity, on a different level. But I would say probably one of the more complicated things that I navigate with founders who are in the scale process, have maybe solved the money conversation, but we're looking into leadership in a different capacity, moving from founder to operator to CEO. And all the complexities that come with that is, you know, I would say one of the more interesting concepts that we traverse on a daily basis is just the conversation of identity and who we're becoming. And in that conversation, who we're committed to. So, I mean, if you think about the brain, the brain doesn't really care what you say that you want. You know, you can write it down, you can spin in a circle and sage yourself, and you can do a whole lot of different things. But the brain just cares about confirming patterns. Right. And we've absorbed some of these patterns and beliefs from childhood through traumas that we've experienced, things that have been done to us or done through us or done by us. Everything is committed to a story playing out the way that it needs to play out, whether that's money is hard, or I'm the only one who cares, or you just don't understand my wife is this way, or this is just the way that I am, or this is just how I'm wired. Like, this is how my dad was. This is how my mom was. You don't know my stuff. We're so committed to stories. And one of the more complex conversations, as simple as it is getting people to detach from the stories that have created their identity. Because I believe for most of the men that I work with, for all of the men that I work with, there is a great calling on their life. No one comes to work with me who doesn't understand that there's a calling on their life. It's probably, I mean, it's something that resonates in the language that I communicate. You were created for purpose, on purpose, with purpose, by purpose. Genesis 1:26, you are called for dominion over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and the beasts of the land, everything that crawls on this earth. You were called to name them, and you were given authority. That in Ecclesiastes, Kohelet speaks of Havel, of everything being meaningless and vapor and smoke, only to the extent that we recognize that we are the ones given authority to name what is meaningful. So every man that comes into my ecosystem recognizes that, but there's a disconnect. And I believe the disconnect is not because we're afraid of failure. I think we could probably both agree we're pretty good at failing, and we've done it multiple times, and we can do it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Where a man struggles is in recognizing who he has to become and what that will require of him, because God has placed such a great calling on his life. And that is a very scary place to be. It's overwhelming. It's why we self-medicate. It's why we go to alcohol. It's why we numb ourselves out just doom scrolling on our phones. It's why we look at porn. It's why we create all of these variables to dilute the authority that we've been given. Not because we're afraid of failing. It's so that we can confirm a mechanism inside of ourselves that says, see, God's not ready to use me yet.
Interesting. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think especially, I know for me, I've done this where there's areas that are natural and they're easier. You know, I don't have to become a different person to be excellent in XYZ. And so I will lean into that. I will present that. But to do, you know, maybe it's like, I know for me, even right now, we just had our second baby. He's 3 months old. Thanks, man. You know, our oldest is only 2. So like the house is chaotic and marriage has been a real struggle. It's not that my wife and I are fighting like cats and dogs, but we're just like, how do we connect in this chaos that we've created, you know? And I know for me, like it's when the marriage feels strained or we don't feel connected the way we normally do, man, it's so easy to just shelf that and be like, well, we'll get through it eventually. Like I'm sure at some point this will pass through, but I'm going to focus on the areas that are easier, the areas where there's grace. You know, you could even wrap it in some Christianese. And I know for me, like even just in the last couple of days, like with chatting with the one friend in particular, I just had a wake up call of like, no, I need to man up. Like I need to rise up. This is my opportunity. This is my growth thing. And it's really hard. And I have to make some apologies. And I also have to make some adjustments to my life. It's really like inconvenient, quote unquote. But I know this is the thing that I need to do. So I think is that kind of what you're touching on? Like, I'm thinking of like,
think of it even this way. Like, again, if you were to say, okay, I am not stepping up to the plate when it comes to the pursuit of my wife. We're busy, we're overwhelmed, we're stressed, we've got a new baby. All those things are true.
Right.
And also, if I am a husband who pursues his wife, regardless of circumstance, because my love, my adoration, my affection, my care, my stewardship towards the health and the intimacy of this relationship, which is what I committed to, it is not contingent on a circumstance or a season or a baby or busyness or tiredness. No, I am not apathetic. I am on fire for my wife. That's who I am.
Yeah,
that is the man that's who God's called me to be. Great. Well, then what do I do? Well, what does daily pursuit look like? It can be as simple as, hey, I want you to grab a dry erase marker. It's going to cost you 50 cents at Walgreens or wherever you shop, CVS, whatever. Amazon Prime it. You can get it there this afternoon. Get a whole host of colors of them. And I just want you to keep them in the top drawer of your bathroom counter. And every morning, I just want you to write your wife a love note on her mirror. You're chosen. You're beautiful. You're beloved. I'm grateful every day that God placed us together. Have I told you how beautiful you are today? Put a heart, just draw a heart and just put world's hottest mom. Whatever you want to do, pursue it. Every Friday, we have Flower Friday. My wife gets fresh flowers every single Friday. Why? 1, she likes flowers. 2, it teaches our boys, hey, guys, there's a consistency aspect to this.
Yeah.
This is just who we are. This is what we do. Yeah. This is what pursuit looks like.
Yeah, it's so good.
Is it breakfast in bed one day? Maybe it's like me. In one of my drawers back here, you can get it on Amazon. Not complicated. They're just blank cards. Mine look like a cardboard. There's like cardstock with envelopes, and I just write my wife love letters, and I just hide them through the house. So she just finds them randomly.
Yeah,
and we don't have a newborn, right? But we're busy. We're both doing different things. Like I'm up early. I'm usually up around 3. And so I go to the gym.
Mark Wahlberg early.
I'm from Oklahoma. We grew up in the country. Taking care of animals that early. It's just always been that way. Like I wish it was that cool. It's just the way that my brain's always worked, and I haven't been able to untrain my brain to wake up any later.
Fair.
But I would say my spiritual gift is falling asleep at like 9 p.m. So
That is a gift.
yeah, I'm like, don't, like I'm
I
never
can't do
going to
it,
be a
dude.
night owl.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to stay up late. I'm a drag.
Yeah.
But I know that about myself. My wife she will stay up late. She's not honestly, like, she's not really even a Christian until about 9 a.m. So I know I've got all that time where I can pursue her before she ever wakes up.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I come back from the gym, I'm going to stop and grab her a Starbucks because she really enjoys that. Little things. How can we just, it's not rocket science. Just how do we pursue? How do we pursue on a daily basis? How do we create little gestures and acts of service on a daily basis that confirm, hey, I know we're busy.
Yeah.
I know life's overwhelming right now.
Yeah.
And I want you to know I still see you. And I still choose you I still pursue you every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now I think you need to just tie everything together, because I know that you're known online for this is who I am, this is what I do framework. Yeah. And you just gave me a beautiful example, but I think we need to just take one step back. I want to make sure people catch this. And part of the reason that I have a vested interest in this framework, just so you know, is the deep clean method, which helps guys quit pornography, is just 3 steps. It's build self-awareness, heal your heart, and shift your identity. So this is the third pillar here. Like this for us, this is all about identity. We're all about this. We have a little motto, which is for each of them we have a motto, but the one for identity is I would rather be 100% my true self and rejected than 80% my true self and accepted.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to foster that like radical authenticity of like, hey, this is who I am in a way that's truthful. Like not that this is who I am that's attached to trauma or, like you said, kind of those false identities. This is who I really am. But I love that this is what I do component, because you said earlier in your story that you were the affirmation addict. So this can't just lead to the things that you shout in the bathroom mirror of this is who I am, and pray to God that one day, through osmosis and something else that your brain starts to adjust. There's an action component here, because faith without works is dead. We know that's important. 100%. So just tie all this together. I feel like we jumped ahead. It's so good. I already got a great idea just from what you said, but I want to make sure everybody really catches this framework and what you're saying here.
So let's just do this off the cuff. Can we agree? And again, this is us just having a conversation. Most of your audience, are they moving through identity shifts because they are letting down? They're removing a destructive identity and habit, and they're moving towards reconciliation to like a Genesis 1:26 dominion authority. Exactly.
This is I was an addict. I was a pervert. I was a whatever. I was an adulterer. Yeah, they're leaving that behind. Yeah.
Great. So, well, the beauty then is we know who we don't want to be, and I think some of the hard part when so I have clients, we have a mastermind, and then on the backside of that, we reach about 25 million people a month through social media organically. So I'm getting hundreds of messages a day from people who are in that shift. Like, I know what I don't want anymore, but but where does that leave me? No pun intended. I don't know what to do with my hands, right? Cool. Well, let's make a list of all the things that you are saying I am not anymore. And then very simply, if you're not these things, then what's the reciprocal? And if we can say, okay, well, then this is the proper frame of identity. I am these things, and we can replace that with scripture. Who does scripture say that you are? Because again, for so many, it's like, I don't know what I want. I just know what I don't want to feel anymore. I know that I don't want this shame anymore. I know that I don't want this isolation. I know that I don't want to hide. I know that I don't want to keep lying. I know that I don't want to keep telling my wife it's one thing when I know it's something else.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids to grow up and see the glossy glaze over my eyes because I'm just a shell of who I promised them I'd be. I don't want any of that anymore. Okay, cool. Well, then the flip side of that, who would that man be? Or woman? But who would that person be in a best case scenario? And we can start to frame that out. And so then based on that, well, I would be a loving, present husband who is not addicted to pornography. And I just say that because that's the primary mechanism that we're navigating men through. Cool. Well, I'm going to tell you, great. Well, then what are the action steps? And also recognize that we don't just eliminate a habit. We have to replace it with something else.
Yes.
And so for so many, we're going to find ourselves with idle time because we used to fill that time with dopamine response mechanisms that serve to fill a void.
Yeah.
Right? It can be stress de-escalation. It can be dopamine response due to overwhelm. It can be, manufactured intimacy, replacing oxytocin with dopamine, and we become addicted to the formation that these mechanisms provide. Not healthy, but remember, your brain doesn't care about health. It only cares about getting the response that you feel that you deserve. And so we can look at that and we can say, okay, if I'm not this, and I say that I am these things, well, then we then also have to look at the breaks in time. We have to start getting very, very clear about the audit process of your time. When are you most likely, we'll call it using. When are you most likely to use? And what can we put in its place? You don't just eliminate it. We have to put something in its place.
Yeah.
I know between these hours, this is when I'm probably most susceptible. Great. We're going to flip the schedule and you're going to go to the gym during those periods. We're going to flip the script and you're going to get on an accountability Zoom with a brother. I don't care what you guys are doing. You don't even need to talk. You're just going to work with cameras on for the next hour and you're going to work through this process together.
Yeah.
Right? It is, if I am this, then what am I committed to putting in its place?
Yes.
For me, as somebody who for a season really struggled with drinking too much, wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic or anything else. Just, it was a defense, kind of like other guys use porn. Yeah. Porn has never been that was never my thing, but performance, alcohol, those things were. So I need to replace it with something else. So I'm going to replace it with healthy habits. I'm going to replace it with going to the gym. I'm going to replace it with good, healthy, nutritious food. I'm going to replace it with reading. I've got to put something in its place, because if you're anything like me, which I assume you are, because you're listening to this, we have addictive personalities. When you can recognize that you have an addictive personality and you are bent towards the mechanism of repetition, then we need to replace it with something that's actually going to be beneficial and useful for you.
Yes.
Reading a book, listening to an audiobook, you feel the urge to do something, go for a walk. This is my trigger. This is my mechanism. If this is who I am, this is what I do. I am not bound by this, so I'm going to go for a walk around the block. That doesn't work. I'm going to call somebody. And that's how we're going to move forward and how we're going to move through this. This is why also I have a friend who's a pastor named Joby Martin. And
he was just on the podcast.
No, get out of here.
Yeah, like 2 months ago.
Amazing. So he has this thing, this framework that you need. So when the paralytic needed to get to Jesus, he couldn't get to Jesus. But how did he get lowered? He had 4 men in his corner who each took an edge of the mat, and they lowered him to the feet of Jesus. Listen, adversity and these seasons of struggle are going to come for all of us. And you need those 4 brothers in your corner who will each take an edge of that mat and who will usher you into the feet of Jesus in the presence of God. And so that's why I believe your program is so important in the brotherhood and the community that you've created, because it allows men to have those brothers, and it allows them to be a brother for somebody else who, when this time comes, there's no questions asked. It's not a conversation of judgment. It is, I am training myself in this moment. Rather than grabbing my mouse and clicking, I'm grabbing my phone and calling.
Yeah. It's so good. How important is it that people have, because you mentioned most people that come to you, they know they're called to something better. They know that there's something great on their life. How important is it that greater thing is articulated? Because I guess I'm just imagining, because obviously we run into this a lot. And so we have guys, it depends on what level of program you're in with us, but usually guys either work on a mission statement or a vision board, something that, allows them to see what they're moving towards. Yeah. Because I find that in those moments of temptation, where they know they should hop on the Zoom call, they know they should go for a workout, if they don't have something compelling them, the cheap reward, there's almost, if there's an imbalance there and whatever they're moving towards doesn't compel them, they might say, I know I should be doing this, but they're ultimately their actions aren't really going to change. Sometimes I guess it's the other side of it too. It's like the wife is threatening to leave, or the wife has left. The pain of that sometimes will propel someone forward. With your clients, is it look similar? What are the elements the intangibles, I guess, that have to be in place for them to actually do what they say they're going to do to carve out that new identity?
Yeah. Well, one, I mean, we have gamification inside of ours, and
Cool.
and so there's reward mechanisms and dopamine triggers that are useful towards pushing towards specific goals. But understand, like, everything for us has to be measurable. So it's not like I want to make more money. I'll send you $1 in the mail. I'm your guru, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. Or like, I want to get in better shape. I don't know what that means, because somebody who does marathons or extreme races or something else is very different than somebody who is competing in high rocks or CrossFit. Is very different than somebody who's stepping on stage and competing. So we need to be able, like, what does that frame mean? Which is why we also have to tie, like, I want to be a better dad. What does that mean? What can we tie that to that is measurable on a daily basis? And how can we start to stack those micro commitments and wins in a way that it starts to reframe your identity? So we want to track all of those wins. We want to check them off. Why? Because the brain, again, doesn't care about what you want. It's just trying to confirm a pattern. In physics, it's called the principle of least path. It's like water doesn't flow through rocks. It flows around it. Right? Wind doesn't flow through trees unless you're talking about leaves. But in reality, it's flowing around all of those things.
It's least resistance.
Path of least resistance. Your brain is trying to get to a desired outcome with the least resistance possible. The only way that we start to recalibrate how the brain views that modality and views that finish point or checkpoint is we have to start doing things differently and confirming that this dopamine feels the same as the dopamine that we've been using as a cheap kind of. So we have to quantify everything, which is why, we work with founders on a one-to-one basis. I work with founders in the scale between 20 and 50 million EBITDA. And then we have a mastermind where if you're, doing 1.5 or above, we have a mastermind for men called 126. Why do you need to be doing that amount of revenue inside of your organization? Because we can't have the conversations that we need to have if you're making 50K a year. No, there is nothing wrong with that at all. Like, you are not less than anyone. I believe we're all called to different things. But in order for us to have the conversations and for it to be incredibly useful and streamlined, we have to set parameters around who we're talking to so that it maximizes efficiencies.
Of course.
So as a result of that, we get very, very granular. So what are our year? We're doing this right now. What are yearly targets for 2026? Great. Based on that, what are quarterly projections? What do we need to hit and stack every single quarter? Based on that, what are our monthly keyframes? Like, what has to happen on a monthly basis, broken down by weekly? Okay, great. Well, then what are the weekly benchmarks, and what are our daily actions that ensure that hits? The same can be true in your body, in whatever frame or physique or level of health you want to build. The same can be true inside of your marriage. The same can be true inside of how you relate and parent your children. The same can be true inside of spiritual development and who you become as a believer and a man who walks with God. All of these things can be measured. Some of them, yes, can be a little bit more ethereal than others, but we can put daily action and frameworks toward everything. You show me a man who has a full, intentional calendar mapped out every 30 minutes, hour by hour, from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed. I can show you a man who is on purpose, and a man who is on purpose is not a ship without a rudder. He is focused, and he doesn't have time for distractions because he understands who he's called to be.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. That's so good. It's so funny. We talk about that. We actually talk about scheduling your time, especially for people that are struggling with sexual sin. It's so important, and really narrowing on those weak moments. It's late night.
Idle time was the devil's playground.
Dude, 100%. And we always get pushback. It's like, oh, I don't want to be that guy, right? There's the identity stuff. Or it's kind of just like, well, I don't want to feel like super locked in. And we just tell people, like, look, you don't have to stay glued to your schedule. Like, you're allowed to move things around, but just commit, at least, like, have some intentionality. And if you're like, okay, I don't, it's a Saturday, it's my free day, just put a block. Like, in this block, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to do, you know, whatever your healthy thing is. But time is it's such a big deal. It's so important. And I think people lose sight of that. I think especially when people are, you know, just going through the motions, or they're caught up in, you know, addiction or whatever else.
Sure.
This is such a big deal. So I really appreciate what you're saying here.
Well, and I would challenge any man who feels that way, who feels like I just don't want to be that locked in. Like, understand you have today once. And if you're not stewarding over your time effectively, if you are not wringing out every ounce of life day to day, what are you doing? What do you need downtime from? And I'm not saying you need to go 100 miles an hour all day long, but what I'm asking is, what are you needing escape from? Because if you're not, we read in Matthew, if you're not stewarding over your time effectively, if you're not putting to work the giftings and callings that God has given you and created you for, again, the conversation isn't whether you fail or not. The conversation is like, who are you afraid that you'll have to become? What are you afraid that it's going to separate you from? What are you going to have to lay down? What do we need that free time for? Because even if we have free time, like for me, I'll schedule out working on, I work on old trucks, you know, I've got, I drive old stuff. So I like to be under the hood, or I like to be, you know, beside an old Harley, just wrenching, but I schedule that time out. Is it still recreational time for me? Yeah, but I'm going to schedule it so that I know what I'm doing, so it has a purpose.
Yes.
So I would say to any man who's like, I just don't want to be that locked into my schedule. You're locked into a schedule either way, because time is linear and it moves forward whether you want it to or not. Yeah. You're either making the most of that time or you're wasting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. No, it's really, really good. I'm curious. So you obviously, like, what you've built here has become very successful. It's scaled. You mentioned the reach that you're having.
Yeah.
What's different between the Cody now versus the Cody, you know, 10 years ago when you did lose your marriage and you mentioned that difficult season? What's changed now that's allowing you to steward the growth and continue to scale the growth without you having to worry about your internal life imploding?
A lot of heavy confrontation, recognizing that I have not done the past 10 years perfectly. I've gotten a lot of things wrong, and I'm aware to that. And I do my best on the backside of not getting things right, to not get them wrong again. So to learn from the mistakes that I've made, to be okay with who I am. So to be content with who God's called me to be and created me to be, but not to be complacent inside of that.
Yeah.
To recognize that the only opinions that really matter are the ones inside of this house. So that's my ministry first.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I would not be who I am. I would not be where I am. I would not. I would not have what we would call the success that I've experienced in whatever entity of mine we want to break down, without my wife. My wife is every bit of evidence of God's grace and peace inside of my life. I never knew that I deserved. So one of my beliefs was like, peace isn't for somebody like me. I didn't grow up in peace. I grew up in a lot of chaos. I grew up in very unstable homes. And that's not to call anybody out or down. It was just an experience, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I never knew peace could be for someone like me. I'm someone who I would manufacture chaos just so I had a fire to put out, because that was the only way that I felt loved.
Yeah. Dan Martell calls it the chaos addiction, I think, right? Yeah.
And Dan has been a mentor of mine for 2 years now. Cool. He's a great friend and somebody that I deeply, deeply respect. And even when I first started courting my wife, I would manufacture chaos, and she was so gracious to understand my complexities and my trauma and the man that I was fighting to become. And she gave me the grace to not have to fight to become that man, but to recognize that man has always been inside of me, and it was an uncovering. And so the stability of my marriage, the health and the peace of my home, those are things that make me the richest man in any room. You could ask my boys about who I am, and I feel confident in who they would tell you that I am, who I am to my co-parent and to her husband and to their kids. We're all one big family. That is a great deal. Again, a great example of God's grace in my life, that we are able to set a standard for co-parenting that doesn't really exist. It's such a blessing because my son never has to choose like I did. And so that's, what's different is there's, just like anyone, there's just an evolution that happens should you choose it, to be aware of where you miss it, to be aware of your inconsistencies, to be aware of what your triggers are, to be aware of where you would rather stay perceptively safe. And then, one, what needs to die in me to become the man that I said that I would be, and answering that question every single day. And then two, putting the people around you who you can confide in to those dreams and ambitions and callings of God, and they'll hold you accountable to who it is that you're called to be and what it is that you say that you're called to.
Yeah, come on.
Any man can hide behind anonymity. Any man can post cool things on the internet. Any man can crush it in a small circle of people that you've known for 25 years. But when you recognize that you're called to something more, then you elevate your circle. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the people that you've always associated with. Not at all. But it means that you have to understand that the propensity is that you'll just stay where you are because it's comfortable, familiar, and you don't want to make people uncomfortable by your success. So you need to put yourself in a position where success is normalized, and you're kind of the smaller fish in the big pond, which is why I love guys like Dan and others who have been mentors to me, who have consistently, continually pushed me past my own paradigm of what I think is possible. Not for the sake of, supercars and all the other things. I think everybody has their own measure and metric of success. For me, it is being able to be present for everything that's happening with my family, to have the time freedom to be able to do the things that I'm called to be able to say yes to sitting on boards and being a part of initiatives that are making global impact, and to do so with a clear conscience and resting my head on my pillow every night, recognizing I am who I say I am. So
come on, man. It's amazing. How do you cope? How do you cope now at this stage? What are some of the mechanisms you developed? Because again,
that's a phenomenal question.
Yeah, go for it.
That's a phenomenal question. One, I give myself grace. So I recognize that I do have tendencies, and so I have to recognize that those exist. So I think you can move through seasons. I think you move through patterns and tendencies, and you always recognize you are still fallible as a human, and you're one decision away from toppling all the things that you've worked so hard to eradicate from your life.
Yeah.
So how do I cope? One, fitness is a big thing for me. So walking, going to the gym, taking care of myself, those are massive for me. I recognize I do have an addictive personality, so steering that towards something that is healthy. Two, music. Writing and spending time with instruments in solitude is I think I love that side of David as well. I think there's just something about lamenting, and it's not all pretty sunshine songs. I write, I've walked through a lot of loss and a lot of pain. Yeah. And so there's a lot of lamenting that goes alongside that, because that pain has to go somewhere, because if I don't transform it, I transmit it. And so putting it there, therapy. Listen, I'm a big fan of coaching. I am a mentor myself. I would say I'm a coach. I don't love what the space has become, so sometimes I have a hard time associating myself with that. Yeah, I get that. And I also believe in therapy, and I believe in sitting with someone who is the right fit for you. Not all therapists are created equal. And having your mail read to you. This is not a conversation. I don't need to be coddled. I don't need you to be like, well, tell me more about that. Tell me about a time in your child. I don't need any of that. I need to know, why does my brain do the things that it does? Why am I still holding on to this? What is this costing me? Yeah. And how do I eradicate it? And I have a therapist who is this little 5'2" Romanian woman who just kicks the dog piss out of me every time that I go. And that's what I need.
Yeah.
and it was also very healing for me because she is a woman who is incredibly safe, and that's very, very important to me. And so therapy is big. And just recognizing I'm just not going to put myself in scenarios that like would compromise the decisions and the identity that I've confirmed in my life.
Yeah. And I think that's where that framework is so powerful, right? Like, because you can keep coming back to it again and again. This is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah.
It ensures that, whatever decision you're making in life, whether it's handling profit in a business, managing people, or it's, when you're tempted and you're alone in your bedroom at 3:00 in the morning, that you're just always making those decisions that align, right?
Well, and I believe therapy and just personal development in general has really helped with not associating my identity with my triggers or compulsions that require, when you say like, how do you cope, or like, for me, a big part of like coping is just recognizing, hey, why do I feel the desire or the need to cope right now? What is the weaker part of me that is desiring that mechanism? And how do I eradicate that? Like, what is dying in me to give birth to new life? What is the dead branch that needs to be cut off so that new life can grow? So it's also developing a deep sense of awareness to the desire to even cope in the first place and what it is that I'm avoiding confronting.
Yeah. It's well said. Yeah. And that's where that self, like, again, this is where like, we're very aligned because like even our first pillar is that building that self-awareness, right? And you really do have to understand yourself, what you need, what you're going through. And I feel like so much about
this is also why your programs, why what you do, what I do is so important, because you can be completely honest with yourself and still not be telling the truth. So this is why accountability, qualified accountability, which is why I want you to open your calendar. I want to know everything. I want to know when you have compulsions. I want to know when you're struggling. I want to know when you're dissociating. I want to know when you're angry. I also want to know when you're euphoric and happy. I want to know all of it. Every man that comes to work with me has a full time audit done.
Yeah.
And like, hey, if you look at something that is detrimental to your psyche and to the man that you want to become, I need to know about it. I don't want to know what you're looking at, but I want to know when it's happening. There's no shame. There's no judgment. I can't help what you commit to hide any more than Jesus can minister to a mask you're committed to wearing. So the more truthful, like imagine investing financially into something and then hiding from it.
Still lying about it. Yeah.
Like the more honest you can be and forthcoming, the more that we can then discern together what the truth actually is. And then we can create a cohesive plan to get you through that into the promised land on the other side.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. It's such a big deal. I think this is why every man does need at least one mentor in his life.
Yes.
And I think it's also why we need brothers. Like
100%.
We can't keep doing this thing alone. And it's so critical. It's funny when I asked you the question earlier, like what's the hardest part about, the work you do? And I was thinking, I wonder if somebody asked me that, what would I say? And I actually would have answered probably that, which is getting people to actually tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, right? And I was thinking, man, you work with pastors. I think pastors are some of the hardest people to actually get the truth out of. Yeah. Because like we're so good at hiding and kind of sugarcoating things or reframing. Exactly. And there's a real art. I can tell like you really know how to get the truth out of people in a very powerful and effective way. And I'm sure it's one of the many reasons that you're so successful. For somebody who's been listening to this, Cody, somebody who maybe wants to find out more about what you're up to and maybe wants to just learn more. You have so many great frameworks and concepts. We just really hit on a couple of them today. Yeah. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing, man?
One, you can just go to codyjefferson.com. Pretty simple there.
Perfect.
You can learn more about me and ways in which we might be able to serve you. On the backside of that, if this just resonated and you're like, man, I'd really like to tell you my story because I just love some perspective. I made not that God is somebody to make a deal with, but I made a deal with God a long time ago that if I ever got too cool or too popular or too busy that I couldn't answer every single message that came in and just pastor people and walk with people. And that obviously that comes with boundaries, that he could just take it all the way. And so if you are that person, you're like, I'd love just 60 seconds of perspective on something. Just shoot me a message on Instagram. Just shoot me a voice memo and I'll respond. Always do. I don't have like some VA that manages all my stuff. It's me. And let's start a conversation. I believe everybody has a story, and I believe that we are all desperate to be known. And I think some of us are just tired of settling for being seen.
Yeah, it's so good, man. So good. We'll put all the links in the show notes, but brother, this was amazing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the work you're doing. And
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Yes, sir.